Welcome back, everybody. Today's topic is the principle of design, and we're talking about contrast. So we're going to cover color, texture, shape, pattern, and size. So I have examples of all of these, so we'll touch on them. So we've covered a few things as far as color when we talked about the color wheel. So opposite, complementary colors, purple and yellow, blue and orange, red and green. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the color exactly as far as contrast goes. So here's a real life situation that happened earlier this week when I met with a client. She happens to have honey oak cabinets and millwork throughout her house. So in her lower bathroom, she has a vanity. It's probably a little bit more honey colored than this, but here's an example. So for this honey oak, this is the cabinet, and so she's trying to figure out what to do with the flooring, and so she's trying to match this cabinet color. That is not something that you want to do because you want to have contrast. So I suggested to her having something for a flooring that's lighter, like in between the grain, or having something darker that is the color of the grain. So here are examples. So this would be lighter. Now this is not a really great example because I just pulled samples from what I have, and these are both oak and they're really close. But having a natural finish on the oak is going to change. It's going to have that contrast that you're going to need to have interest for your home. Now I really like this one because it's a lot more dynamic. So having a honey oak cabinet with a darker warm tone for the flooring. So if you have cool tones, which are blues and grays, you want to stick with those cooler tones with your flooring, unless you have flooring that has both cool and warm tones. So if you have warm tones for your cabinetry and millwork, you're going to want to have at least some warm tones in your flooring and the other things. So this is a really great example, real life situation earlier this week. Honey oak cabinets, what do we do with the flooring? Now this is a bathroom, so we wouldn't do wood, but in her kitchen she had the same honey oak cabinets and hickory flooring. And there was a slight bit of contrast, but having a little bit more contrast makes it very much more interesting. So that's color. Not only does it mean paint, but it can mean millwork and fabric and things like that. So moving on to texture. So this particular wall covering is like thin veneers of wood pieces, so it's very textural. So this would be another example of something that's very textural. It's very lovely. So then in contrast to this very textural wall covering would be this wall covering that is very smooth. It's smooth. There's virtually no texture to it. Visually there's a pattern, but there is no texture. So this would be a really great example. You probably wouldn't put these two together necessarily, but this is just a really great example of something that's very textured and something that's very smooth for wall covering. Again, that can be the texture of the wall itself, so your wall texture. And then we are going to go into, let's see, I have a cheat sheet here too, just to make sure. Shape. So this particular piece is a 12 by 24. I love this tile. It's so beautiful. So it is metallic, and this is a square rectangle shaped tile. On the back here, it shows you exactly what it looks like. And in contrast to that rectangular shape or square, I have this really beautiful octagonal. This is a black marble with some bits of gold glitter. These two would be lovely together. And let me know if you would like it in your space, because I would love to put that in somewhere. So these are really great examples of a contrasting shape. Oftentimes you will see this in a tiled shower where you have the wall tile and then you have the accent tile. Sometimes you have a different floor tile. So that is all contrast in shapes of tile. Again, really, I love these. Do you love these? These are so great. All right, pattern. So pattern having a floral, oops, upside down. So this would be an example of a floral and then a sort of stripe. With patterns, having contrasting patterns itself, florals, stripes, checks, houndstooth, those kinds of things, solids, those are all contrasting fabrics. Having an assortment of these in your furniture, in your soft goods, is ideal because that's going to add interest. The whole point to principles and elements of design is to ensure that your home is very interesting to look around, to be in, and it's comfortable and cozy. These are all elements and principles that are going to ensure that your home is interesting and lovely and you want to be there. So this is an example of contrasting patterns. This isn't a exact stripe per se, but it is a version of something very linear. Now, here's a little side note, here's a design tip, insider secret here. So some fabrics run, standard on the bolt, and some of them run up the roll. So if it's up the roll, it has, it can be used differently as far as upholstering sofas. So these are just standard, but again, pattern changing between a pattern of some sort and then sort of accent fabrics being solids, stripes, different geometrics. Okay, so now we have size contrast. We are going to use the ever popular subway tile. So this happens to be a 2x9 white glossy subway tile. This one happens to be a 6x18 white glossy subway tile. So between these two, there is a huge contrast in size. Would you put these in the same shower? Sure, you could. So adding different sizes of things, just like different patterns and different shapes and different textures and colors, all of these things. Now you could certainly mix it up and do a large white and a small color. So then you'd have different size and different color. And maybe this one's textured. So you can add a lot of these different elements overlap. So it's not just one thing is one thing. So that is what's super fun and exciting about design, is because all of these things overlap and all of these things go together. And that's what makes a home really fun and unique and interesting. So that's what I have for today. Next week we'll talk about another principle or element of interior design, and I look forward to seeing you then.